Next part of section 4.1, doing some examples with graphing. So we do need to remember how to graph lines. Our first system of equations are both in slope-intercept form. So just a reminder, that's y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope and the ordered pair 0b is the y-intercept. So we'll do the bottom equation here because it's easier to write it. The slope is 4 or 4 over 1, and the y-intercept is the ordered pair 0, 3. And in the other equation, the slope is -1 or -1 over 1, and the y-intercept is the ordered pair 0, -2. So I'm going to go to a piece of graph paper. It's important that you draw straight lines, and on graph paper is very helpful. I printed mine off from the website math-aids.com. That has several different sizes. I've chosen that 1 block equals 1/4 of an inch. I find that that is a pretty decent size to use for drawing. This is section 4.1, example 2. Part A, so I'm going to draw my XY axis. And I'm going to plot my y-intercept. And then my slope is 4 over 1, so that would be up 4 and over 1. But I've gone off of the grid that I've drawn, so I either have to redraw it, kind of shifting everything down a little bit, or the other option is to reverse the slope. So instead of going up and right, I'm going to go down 4 and left 1, and then I'm going to grab a paper here to get a nice straight edge. So this is one of my lines, and then I'm going to graph the other line. It has an intercept of -2, and then down 1, right 1. And I can already see the other point I made is right in line with those. And that is going to be the intersection of my 2 lines. So then I just have to determine what is the ordered pair. So that's -1, -1. Since that's the intersection point of my lines. So the ordered pair -1, -1 is the solution. And if I read the directions, if I've done the first part, I've solved the system graphically. Now I have to determine whether the system is consistent with independent equations, consistent with dependent equations, or inconsistent. So I wrote this down in the previous video. It has one solution. It's consistent with independent equations. Part B, graphing. These equations are not in slope-intercept form like they were in Part A. So either you're going to rearrange into slope-intercept form, which means to solve it for y, or another form from which you can graph is what's called standard form, where you have the x and the y together on one side of the equation equaling c. And an easy way to graph these is by the intercepts. For the x-intercept, you're going to substitute y equals 0. And for the y-intercept, you're going to substitute x equals 0. So if I take this equation right here, and if I want to find the x-intercept, I'm going to put in a 0 for the y, and then solve it for x. So 4x equals -4. So x equals -1. And then the y-intercept divide by 2 and I get y equals negative 2. So that's one of my lines. Then the other line, so I have 2x equals 2, which means x equals 1. And then I have y equals 2. I'm going to go back to my graph paper. And draw xy axis. And I plot x equals negative 1, y equals negative 2. Those 2 points makes my first line. Then I have x equals positive 1, y equals positive 2. Those 2 points make my next line. Well, it appears I have parallel lines. Parallel lines is an inconsistent system. There is no solution. So I would put no solution or empty set symbol, and I would say this is inconsistent. So there is no solution. For the sake of time, we're going to skip down to part D. Part C, I'll put that up here real quick if you want to look at it and try it on your own. You could do that. I don't have the answer right in front of me, so I can't tell you right off the top of my head what it is. But part D, we'll work through that one. So if I'm going to graph part D, my first line is in slope-intercept form. My second line is in standard form, so I'm going to do this one by intercepts. So I have negative 4 over 6, which is negative 2/3. And then the y-intercept so I have y equals positive 2, so then I go to graph paper here, and I draw my grid. Y-intercept of 2, slope of 3 over 1. And then I have x-intercept of negative 2/3, y-intercept of positive 2, and I notice that those points are on the same line that I've already drawn. So I have 2 lines that overlap. This is called coincident. This means that this is a consistent equation, a consistent system with dependent equations. And I would write my solution, which is the set of all x, y such that, and then I would pick the simpler equation, which is going to be the y equals 3x plus 2.